And we are live.
Yes, we
Hello.
are. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Zocalo. This is your one-stop shop for everything Babylon 5. I'm Char. That's Norm. We are your hosts here. And today is going to require a lot of imagination because this is a serious what-if topic that we have. And it is, if sleeping in light was not a thing, use as much brain bleach as you can possibly muster to make this happen. I understand it's very hard.
Yeah, this is a tough one. And it's
What if we
hard.
didn't know? What if
Yeah.
we didn't know about sleeping in light? What if Objects at Rest was the end of the series? What would that mean? We're going to explore it today, and I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. We've been talking a lot about a bunch of different topics here on Zocalo, and we haven't tackled sleeping in light yet for several reasons. One, I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think that we're all ready to kind of be as cathartic as we want to be on the air about it.
No, there's just so much that comes with a viewing and a discussion of sleeping in light.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of emotions. We've got to be mentally, physically prepared too for that.
We already have some viewers in the chat. Earl's here, Slice of Sci-Fi's here, Brian, hello, and Bizarre Love Muffin 96.
I love that name. That is fantastic. Hello, everybody, and hi,
NBC.
DC. Rain.
Yep.
Summer, I totally agree. We will never be ready for that show, which is why we haven't done it to date. It might never happen.
That might have to be kind of like our drunk history show because reasons. Right?
Because that way, at least if we're sobbing uncontrollably, we have extra reasoning with the alcohol.
Yeah. And everyone else too. And Terry Lynn's here. Hi, Terry Lynn. Super Dave's here.
Hi. Yeah. Hello, guys.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is when Char and I have had conversations about, trying to come up with ideas for the show, and they always come very naturally. But it was one of my shower ideas where I do my best thinking in the shower, right between shampooing and conditioning.
Maybe shower thoughts.
Massaging the scalp. And
that is where most of our topics come from for this show.
In shower ideas.
Shower thoughts. Yep. Either while I'm in the shower, while you're in the shower. As soon as we're done, it's just like, hey, I have an idea. We're messaging each other furiously.
Light bulb moments, right? So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I've had some conversations with friends about season finales or series finales. And for me, I know, Char, for you and for everyone here, with so many people, my God, amazing.
A lot of people are showing up for this one. Thanks, guys.
Sleeping in Light is quite possibly the greatest series finale I have ever seen in my entire life. And I have not yet been proven wrong. I have seen many, many, many. I have been attached to many, many, many series in my life, series that have impacted my life in so many different ways. I'm sure, Char, you as well. I have seen the end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was a great series finale. I've seen the series finale for Highlander, one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah, you love that.
Yeah, and I have seen, series finales of, I have seen What You Leave Behind, and I have seen Endgame. I've seen all the series finales for Star Trek. Again, in my favorite genre. And MASH. Yes, Terry Lynn, you're right. MASH.
MASH is a really good one. Yes. I would also put, if you were into the show Breaking Bad, its series finale was a very fitting end to that show.
Right. And I love how you put that, because there are fitting ends to the show. There are incredible series finales that wrap things up. But for some reason, and this is why we love Babylon 5 so much, there's an emotional impact that hits me from that series finale still to this day. Not with as much intensity, but still to this day hits me with as much emotional impact when I watch it. And that is a testament to where we are taken throughout the course of Babylon 5 to that moment. But what if we were never given that moment? Would Objects and Rest, or technically, if we never got a fifth season, would Deconstruction of Falling Stars, would those have been episodes that allowed us to come to terms with the end of our series?
Ooh, so you're actually envisioning a couple different scenarios here. And confession, I did too, just in a slightly different way. We'll get there.
Okay.
But before we really get into the discussion, there is something that we need to do.
True enough.
We need to salute Sleeping in Light, by far the greatest finale of all time. It is a
Here, here.
goat.
Yeah, it is a goat.
Val
2.
Yeah, Sleeping in Light, let's just put it out there. It is on a whole other level for us than any other show.
And that's what one of the hardest things about trying to craft our ideas for this show, and I'm sure it is for many people here, that what if that episode never took place? Would Babylon 5 still have had the emotional impact, the wrap up, and the staying power? Because when you really think about it, when you think about a series, it's how the series and the story wraps that gives you the staying power of the entirety of how long that series was. Does it make sense, or did it make sense? Did it give you the closure that you wanted? If so, why? If not, why not? And
right,
to give a little bit of history here, Sleeping in Light was originally created because Babylon 5 was not at that time going to be picked up for a 5th season. Now, Joe has said, and in the Lurker's Guide, you can actually read about this. Joe has said that he's always written from the standpoint of knowing the ending so that he knows where to wrap his story.
How to get there. That's very smart.
Yeah, it's a smart thing to do. It's not just an organic process of bottle episodes that hope to create a narrative that hopes to create a necessary conclusion to the story. But in doing so, he knew that at the time, in season 4, the powers that be weren't going to pick it up for a season 5. So we had to wrap it in a logical way. However, at the last minute, and this is, Char, when you came into the series.
Yep.
TNT did a saving throw for all you D&D fans out there. Saving throw and saved the series and went into a season 5, which means that canned episode, Sleeping in Light, was put at the end, and that became our series finale. And I was just wondering, where do we go from here? How do we separate that out of our minds and see if, in fact, the series would have had that kind of impact for us at the end, either when Delenn and Sheridan were in bed talking about the League of Non-Aligned Worlds and the Interstellar Alliance and the work that they would do that would last for 1,000 years, or seeing them at the end with Sheridan talking to his son to be, his newborn, on a data crystal, saying that never start a fight, but always finish it. Does that, in the end, make the difference?
Does it have the gravitas? Okay, so I hope at this point you've ingested as much brain bleach as you can before it goes to toxic levels. This is the big ask, right? Sleeping in Light, we have to wipe it away and ask, would either of these, but let's start with Objects at Rest, because that's our primary, yes?
Right, yes.
Yeah, what points does it have in its favor? Would it work? So let's maybe talk about that first, is what does it do right as far as a conclusion to a series? Does it have those strengths? Some things that I would point out are that, yes, they do kind of pass the baton, which is a good, strong kind of way to wrap things up. We've had the salute. We have the nice panning of the camera to the new class, as I like to call it, with Lockley and Talon, Dr. Hobbs and company. Sheridan and Delenn have started a new chapter. They're on Minbar now. So it's like they've closed one thing, they're starting another. They've started building the Interstellar Alliance, and they've started building their lives together. They've got a child on the way. We're kind of leaving everybody in a fairly good place. We do get a last hurrah with Londo, one of the most beloved and important characters of the series. So as much as that brings up a lot of questions rather than answers, it's still kind of great just because it's Londo. And it does have that nice little tie-in, too, of with War Without End. What we do kind of figure out with David and whatnot, we can make some connections. So there is a little bit of a tie-in there. And that last scene of Sheridan recording a message for his unborn child, trying to pass on whatever wisdom he can, it's very sweet. It ends the episode on a warm and uplifting note, like, hey, things are going to work out. Things are okay. Just stick to your guns. Never give up. Well, that is in kind of just a nutshell what John Sheridan did. That is how he helped achieve everything that we saw. So, I mean, it is a very solid place of closure.
Mm-hmm.
I you know what? I think in a lot of ways, yes, it does work.
You know, when you think about objects at rest, and it's, you know, when you trying to, you know, divorce yourself with how we feel about sleeping in light, it is kind of the second part of a two-parter. And I know that we don't want to bring this up exclusively for this particular discussion, but objects in motion and objects in rest, those two, it's a two-parter, really, because you're saying goodbye to the cast, you're saying goodbye to their careers on the station, and then they're moving on. I still think to this day, one of the most depressing ones was Dr. Franklin and having no one to say goodbye to him.
So, you know, unceremonious. Right? He gets to go off the way Sheridan wishes he could have.
Yeah. And you have, you had Jakar leave with Lita. You had Zach kind of like looking from a distance,
longing to watch. Yeah.
But you had a lot of those cathartic moments as an audience member saying, okay, it's nice to be able to say goodbye up to a point, because you know that they're going to go on to other careers. As fans, we can retcon those or create fan fiction and say, Dr. Franklin is going to do this. Jakar and Lita are going to figure out her pleasure threshold, things of that nature. Right?
Oh, you know, they explored that. Of course they did. Jakar was all too happy to help. Yeah. So, I mean, it leaves off in a place of closure while still leaving plenty of opportunity for things, like you said, fanfic, or if there's ever reprisals of the series, there's plenty of directions where that could go. Mm-hmm. You know, knowing that nothing else might possibly happen, at least giving it potential, because it's not so wrapped up that there's nothing left to ponder. Oh, heck, far from it. But you're in enough of a comfortable place to say, wow, what a journey. And then leaving it on a warm and uplifting note, just seeing a very loving couple, you know, just having a moment. It's nice.
A lot of series finales, sometimes they wrap themselves up in the grand spectacle of trying to create literally a big bang, usually a giant, some type of fight or some type of monster or some type of threat scenario that brings all the characters together. But I do think that there was this, the denouement of Babylon 5 was a clear demarcation of, we've already told this story. Most of season 5 really is kind of, ramping down the speed and the tension of series before, and especially after the fall of Centauri Prime, because that was literally, you were in reconstruction. Londo's in reconstruction. The Interstellar Alliance is reconstructing to Tuzanor. So you have a lot of these moments where it's not just intergalactic space battles. It's not about, trying to find and create this new threat, like, this new shadow that's going to like the Drock, or even the Keeper in David's gift that Londo gives him. There are threads that will always kind of extend out from beyond any series finale. But would it be fair to say that there were more issues at the season finale that were answered rather than questions asked or questions left behind?
I would say with Objects at Rest, the answer is yes. It ties more ends than it leaves open.
Okay.
And so, I mean, as an ending episode, I think you've got a really good balance of that. You haven't completely tied everything off, but there's enough, I would say, to where it closes off in a very decent place. What do you think?
I think so too. Like not every series finale has to have like a giant grandiose element in it. I think that it's nice to be able to end on a quiet note and something that's positive and uplifting. What do people think in the comments? Because I want to read some of the comments here.
Let's go.
The comment section is really, really happening.
It's rocking. I've got to scroll way up. Oh, BC wants to know, yes, you have shown your sleeping in light photo to the Zocalo audience. We did that when we were doing a remembrance for Mira Furlan.
Yes. Don't.
I know. I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry.
Yeah.
I want to say hi to Mountains of Elysium. I don't know if we've done that yet. So hello. Thank you for joining us. And da.
Okay, so I want to talk about
Yeah.
something here with Super Dave. So Super Dave said
Okay.
it's the only finale of a show that made me cry. Me too.
Oh, same. I've talked about this before, but I'll say it one more time, is I always have a disconnect when I'm watching a TV series or a movie or what have you. Like, I know it is a dramatization. I only get so much emotional connection, no matter how emotional I'm seeing things on screen. With Babylon 5 and Sleeping in Light, there is no disconnect. And I break the freak down, turn into a puddle of tears every time. It doesn't matter how many times I have watched the episode. I'm gone. And I think Terry Lynn said above that she's might not be able to watch Babylon 5 for a little while. And I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in due time. In due time.
Yeah, hopefully
No
time
hurry.
heals all wounds for you, Terry Lynn, at least where Mira's concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, Earl says that I will admit, being the one guy who liked the series finales of Lost and BSG, I never watched Lost. I did watch BSG, the new BSG, and I thought it was good. And I think another thing that we need to kind of touch on, it's the characters that help you kind of ramp down your expectations, your emotional expectations of where they are to where you want them to be at the series finale. Because sometimes you want them to be, high on top of the mountain and overlooking all their victories and, being hailed on high. But I think it's, some of our favorite characters in Sleeping in Light, in Objects at Rest, they actually did eventually graduate to the next phase of their logical conclusion of a character. Lanier's betrayal of Sheridan, as was foretold in the episode that Summer loves so much.
Oh, Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. Or
yeah, love or hate that outcome, it happened.
Right. And then you have Garibaldi. Garibaldi has had the most incredible reversal of fortune from where he was in the midpoint of season 5 to where he's at the end of Object. Well, not in the end, but when he left the station and has gone on to run Edgar's Industries and bring on Number One. He has found a new path. Yeah.
Once again, finally has Lise, the love of his life.
Right.
Yep. And they're going to build their life together.
Exactly. So there's a happy ending for him. I think that his departure in Objects at Rest is the one moment in that episode that really does make me cry, because you can feel Jerry saying goodbye to the series per se in that episode, to saying that to Bruce and Mira.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those moments where it transcends their characters. It's also the actors saying goodbye to one another.
I would love to see, and I don't know if anyone out there has this, but I would love to see dailies or behind the scenes of actors with their final rap moment, because they usually have that. Like, this is Jerry Doyle's rap for Babylon 5, or this is Bruce's rap for Babylon 5.
There was like and I forget exactly where it was exactly, but there was a online chat rap party during the last moments of filming during season 5. And I remember being a part of that. And Joe might have chimed in, and I forget where it was, darn it, but there was something. There was some sort of ceremony to the very last moments. I can say that much.
There is a new member here to the chat, Sheridan's Orange.
I love that username so much. Hello, welcome.
Yes, welcome. Earl says, right, so many other finales where they run into a problem that they're trying to epilogue while continuing wrapping the action. Sleeping is pure epilogue. And we'll get to that when it also applies to Deconstruction of Falling Stars.
Oh, you're jumping ahead.
Sorry, I won't.
No, it's fine. No, that's my thesis entirely, though, is with Objects at Rest, it feels like a conclusion. It's not an epilogue, because like you said earlier, season 5, in a sense, is kind of the falling action of the story. It's not so much the epilogue, but we've had the big explosive moments at the very end of season 4. So everything after that we are slowing down.
Yeah. I actually feel that Deconstruction of Falling Stars is more of an epilogue to the series than, say, Sleeping Light would have been.
Honestly, I think you could use it as an epilogue, to Sleeping in Light. I mean, in terms of power, it doesn't really hold up very well, but, seeing it in where it is, it just, it's an epilogue. It is about the distant future and the evolution of humanity.
Were there any beats, say, during Objects at Rest that didn't ring true to you for a season finale or a series finale?
Boy, that's a really good question. I didn't think about that. And my immediate reaction is no.
I didn't either. I just watched it again recently, the remastered version on HBO Max. And just in terms of character motivations and where they needed to be, I didn't really find anything that was forced into a series finale, where some people do force things into series finales that don't really fit the logical canon or progression of the series or the character motivations. And I know that some people were like, well, Lanier wouldn't have done that. This is the last episode, we thought, and again, this is all conjecture, but would he have done that? Or would they let him just go off being kind of, Delen's, his unrequited love? But I think that, understanding how Joe drops in, those foreshadowing sequences like he did with Day of the Dead, it does leave Lanier in a very precarious situation for the future of his character. But that happens also in series finales. Not everything is wrapped up, airtight. And I think that that's necessary so that there is some fan, fiction continuation for where their characters go, or with novels or other materials that extend past the TV series.
Right. Yeah. And the Babylon 5 novels were alive and well in 1998 when the show was wrapping. So, I mean, there could have been potential for expanding that further, or some comics, more comics. I mean, all it could have been, right? But okay, let's talk a little bit then about Deconstruction of Falling Stars. Yeah, totally agreeing that it's an epilogue. As a series finale, I don't think that would have been that satisfying.
Well, I see it as the same way as, say, okay, so in Star Trek, the original series, they wrapped with 71 episodes, I believe. I think maybe 72. But the last episode, Turnabout Intruder, it wasn't a series finale. It was just an end. Like they said, that's it. That's the last episode that we're going to broadcast. So it doesn't really end.
Episode two of all the things. I mean, Spock's brain would have been better, in my opinion, because at least that is fun to watch.
Yeah. So sometimes these, endings don't necessarily seem to be that well planned out. And I'm not saying that Deconstruction of Falling Stars wasn't, but because Sleeping in Light was supposed to be the original ending of season 4, I think that it bookends the proper way to let Deconstruction of Falling Stars kind of slide into it, because we get Ivanova back, and Deconstruction of Falling Stars at the beginning, it talks about that very quick line that Ivanova left.
Right. Yeah. You know what? It can serve as an epilogue, but you know what it is with season 5 is between the seasons. It's an interlude. It's bridging the gap between seasons 4 and 5 of, okay, here's a little something different until we really start getting going on a full-fledged season again. I mean, I know it's a part of season 4, but just because of the way it was kind of thrown in at the very last minute, it's an interlude to me. It's kind of its own little offbeat thing. And it's not that I don't enjoy it, because I do enjoy it as an episode. I think it's interesting. In terms of how it fits in the series, it's really kind of hard to necessarily say where it belongs.
I like it where it's at, to be honest with you. I like it where it's at because I like seeing the narrative extension of the Interstellar Alliance and where it would have gone. Also,
the future, sure,
because it allows Garibaldi to be Garibaldi again in that holographic recreation of them trying to what's the right word, to cast a certain aspersions on the leadership of Babylon 5 and how technically Garibaldi is responsible for like the third World War or a nuclear war or something, which led to the Great Burn.
Yes, the Great Burn. Yeah, proving a couple of things. One, there's always going to be dark forces at work trying to take over and do awful things. 2, you're never going to outsmart Garibaldi, even a holographic version.
Right.
He's going to get it done.
Right.
Don't mess with Garibaldi.
The other thing is what I liked about Deconstruction of Falling Stars was that it also had that period of Delenn outliving Sheridan and bringing back Lorian's prediction or his
the myth
of
his death.
especially
Cue
with
the
Sheridan only
conspiracy
having
theories.
Yeah. And I
And
also
TV
like the
pundits.
pundits. Yeah, the pundits were
My husband's favorite thing in all of Babylon 5 is all the punditry. He always says punditry needs to die. He's right. I mean, these guys, they think they know what they're talking about, but they really don't. One, time has removed them from the events, but they're talking a little bit of smack. I mean, they're just there to blah, 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 blah. It's all opinion. It's all conjecture, right?
right.
It's based on some knowledge, but then they kind of just do their own spin on it. To serve whatever until old Delenn shows up and says very little, but doesn't need to say that much to say a lot.
Exactly.
She's
and
doing
also
the opposite of the pundits.
Puts those pundits on their heels. Earl, I was going to say this, but you got to it before me. It's like, oh man, why did we never connect the dots and tell everyone that Garibaldi was responsible for the burn in Disco season 3?
Yeah.
Smart guy.
Oh, Earl, I love you. That's
You're
such a great
guy.
connection. You know what? He is now. Yeah. That's in my head canon. That's what happened.
Garibaldi caused the Great Burn. He destroyed the Federation.
He's that good. He crossed universes.
He did.
He crossed franchises. The guy can do anything. Don't F with Michael Garibaldi.
So there are things in Sleeping in Light that obviously they have, I think, maybe in some cases more influence over each of the season's respective series ends, Deconstruction of Falling Stars and Objects at Rest, that say pay off more when you see it. And one in particular makes probably more sense to one particular actor who's never been on Babylon 5 before, who never has made an appearance until now and never had a line. But now the context of understanding that particular scene makes more sense in Deconstruction of Falling Stars than it does in Sleeping in Light.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's Joe.
Mm. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Think about it this way. In Deconstruction of Falling Stars, he already knew that the show was going to end. It hasn't been picked up yet. So they're creating and producing these episodes. When he shuts down Babylon 5 and Sleeping in Light, when I saw it for the first time, not knowing what I know now, you feel like I'm in season 5. You feel like, yep, this is the end of my series. I'm going to shut down the station and we're going to move on. And he has that look, that longing look. But now in season 4, when it was supposed to be aired, he's like, I didn't get a chance to tell my story. Now I see that. Now I see that look there.
Oh, dang. Yeah. I mean, it is that, right? It's saying all of those things. It's saying goodbye. It's, we were cut short. Life's not fair.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another question. And, I think we might have pondered this before, but it fits with this series and its theme. If we had just gotten Sleeping in Light at the end of season 4, do you think Sleeping in Light would have had as much gravitas, or would it have had possibly even more coming off of the energy of explosive episodes like Intersections in Real Time, Rising Star, Endgame?
Mm-hmm. I don't think so, because Sleeping in Light, it made a very strong point of separating itself from the main storyline to 20 years in the future. It was really all about Sheridan's wrap up, and they didn't really, so I found that, like I said, that's more of, say, like the epilogue of the season. It would have made more sense as an epilogue to season 4, but a series finale for season 5.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is every time I watch the series now, I honestly love the fact that I know at the very end of season 5, when I get to Sleeping in Light, we are going to see General Susan Ivanova again. She's been absent. I mean, for obvious reason, she wasn't in season 5, but it's great that she is back there. It's like, I don't know, it's like comfort food for me. We get to see Ivanova one more time in Sleeping in Light when I do watch it. And I do so sparingly just because of how emotionally it just takes everything out of me.
And this is what I love about Char feeding me this kind of information, because she goes into my next question. If Objects in Rest was in fact the series finale, do you think that it would have had a false note if they tried to bring Ivanova back then?
I think so. I think that would have been like one of those finale gimmicks. because you could have found a constructive way to do it and it would have fit. But, my BS detector as an audience member, and I'm sure we would have all felt this way, is like, they didn't have to do that. They just did it because they wanted to.
What if it wasn't just an appearance? Like, say, Claudia couldn't appear, but they wanted to say, Susan Ivanova is waiting for you as your new military attaché to Earth Force on Tuzanor.
Oh, okay. You know what? If it had just been a line, if we hadn't actually seen Claudia, that might have actually worked better in Objects at Rest.
You know
just
what I mean?
a reference?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like how in No Compromises, where Sheridan and Delenn are talking about their day and he's mentioning Lockley and she says, who? And he says, Ivanova's replacement. Just bringing that forward.
Well,
how she was going to be the commander of Babylon 5, but no.
Exactly. Yep. And she was so distraught over Marcus and what happened to him. Also, I think that it would have maybe fit in this way where, say, Ivanova reached out to Garibaldi because now he has the resources of Edgar's Industries to throw his weight and his influence to try and find a way to bring back Marcus from cryogenic freeze.
Ooh, that would have been interesting. Also, those two, we never saw their reconciliation. Because the last thing she really says about Garibaldi is it's after his betrayal of Sheridan.
Right.
And she says, if he shows up anywhere on Babylon 5, I want him shot on sight.
Right.
So, I mean, those two were like a brother and sister. So what happened? Did they ever kind of make up? Did they talk about it? When she learned the truth, what was her reaction? We never got that. I always wanted that.
And you could also say maybe when he finally got to Edgar's Industries and took out the board of directors, what if, like, say, the next person that was on the list that he had to meet was Ivanova for some reason? Just some reason. We don't know why.
That would have been a good confrontation.
Yeah. Or maybe she just kind of showed up. She walked into his office and just says, hello, Garibaldi. And that's it. That's it. That's all we needed. Just to know that she's still out there. She's moved forward with the rest of the story. And then you can fan fiction from there.
Totally.
Let's take a look at some of the comments here.
Let's talk about comments.
So Sheridan's Orange says, I agree the punditry comments in general, but let's be fair, we don't know the impact of the Interstellar Alliance on the galactic population. Sheridan and the like may not have been seen as the hero. That's a fair point.
I mean, I think that's kind of what the pundits were trying to say was Sheridan was overrated. He didn't do quite as much as maybe Myth wants us to put him on a pedestal and worship him for all the wonderful things he did. Like, and he was just this guy. He did some stuff, but
Well, I mean, a lot of them could have taken the standpoint of Garibaldi in season 5, the beginning, where it's like this man is, he feeds into his own mythology and he's kind of like in his demagoguery. So
the cult of personality. Yeah. You have to imagine that a lot of people on Earth did feel that way because they'd been fed the propaganda from Clark and his cronies after taking over ISN, maybe not knowing any different. And therefore Sheridan was the enemy. He wasn't the good guy. He was the hero to us because we knew that side of the story.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Terry Lynn said, no. This is about Ivanova. If she came in promoted as a captain on, where'd it go?
On one of the fighting ships.
Yeah, I just lost
that. Would have
there it is.
Fit her personality. It would have been cool to see her in command of one of those big destroyers. Just seeing her be a complete badass as we know she is.
Yeah, but how would that fit into like the beats of that story?
That's what I'm wondering is how could you do that and make it look good and make it important to the story? If they just, shown her coming through the wormhole, that would not have done it for me.
Yeah.
Even though I would have loved to have seen her, even though I love Susan Ivanova, no.
Right.
And I agree with what Susan Summer has said is she doesn't think Susan would have wanted to have stayed around long after the Alliance redistributed a lot of what B5 is for. Yeah, and honestly, she had to get away from Babylon 5, right? After all that she went through with Marcus, everything was going to remind her of the trauma she had been through. So it actually, in some really weird, kind of serendipitous way, made a lot of sense that Ivanova had to go. Much as I hate it, I also, story-wise, totally agree with it as a choice.
Do you think it's possible that she just gave up being part of Earth Alliance altogether?
Maybe mentally, you know what I mean? Where her heart was no longer in it. We saw that with General Susan Ivanova. I think she got into enough of a rhythm to go through the motions, but wasn't really living her life. She wasn't happy. She was just existing.
Yeah. And I think that would have been an interesting way to try. I'm sure that, obviously there was a pretty good writer on Babylon 5. You may have heard of him, but he would have been able
Who?
and yeah, and if he didn't want to bring her in, then he didn't want to bring her in. But it does make sense when Sleeping in Light is the finale of season 4 because she's still there.
Yeah, because 20 years down the line, she needed to be there. Yeah. Oh, BC has an interesting idea. Ivanova could have been at the fall of Centauri Prime. Okay, now that could have been interesting. That could have been a way to bring her back. Now, I kind of wonder behind the scenes, like, was Claudia kind of persona non grata after the contract negotiations fell through? Like, was that just not an option to even talk about it?
She was like pursuing other work. Actually, around the same time in Highlander season 6, they were trying to find a new lead character for that series to spin off, and she was one of the characters that was under consideration. So,
so she had moved on. She wasn't available. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, when you're an actor, that's what you do.
So let's take a look at now. When it comes to the series finale and the longevity of season finales, do you think that Objects in Rest had the emotional punch that that we have come to know from Sleeping in Light? Like, a lot of the conversations that we have as Babylon 5 fans comes from, you have to see this series to the end because the end is worth it.
Sure. Totally.
Does Objects in Rest have that?
Okay, this is where the imagination really has to come in because we don't know about Sleeping in Light. We don't know that it just takes everything to a complete different level. I would have to imagine 1998 Char in November of that year watching Objects at Rest for the first time to even come up with this answer because Sleeping in Light is so permeated in the brain, right? So that was the one and only time I can think of to look at for reference. And I have to say, I thought Objects at Rest was a great kind of like ending. Even though I knew that there was another episode to come, I also knew that they had already shot it and that, the whole thing, the whole story. So I thought, well, if they'd ended right here, what more can they possibly do? Like I already thought, what more can they add? I felt very satisfied. Little did I know. But I just thought, what more can you add? This ends in such a good place, and this is not the finale? Well, so to answer the question, I think overall, yes. Honestly, I think it would have worked. Is it just the most powerful thing I have ever seen? No. I don't think you have it going down as one of the best series finales of all time. No. It's just reaching a really good, logical, and happy and satisfying conclusion. But when you compare that to a lot of other series finales, that's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard. It's because I can't remember my feelings from that far back when it came to Objects at Rest. But it almost felt to me that Sheridan's story did have those lingering aspects to it where what's going to happen to him in 20 years? Are they going to address that? There were just some things that just didn't quite sit well for me as a season finale, as a series finale. A season finale, yes. A series finale, no.
Okay, so him leaving his message to his child, not quite. It doesn't quite do it for you, because he's acknowledging, look, by the time you're 21, I'm not going to be here. Mm-hmm. When you listen to this message, I will be gone.
Yeah.
So true. There is some acknowledgement of it, but okay, so that's not enough.
Yeah, that I guess sometimes your expectations for series finales, and I always bring up the word series finales, not season finales, because it's something that you want to have capstone all of the time that you've invested in all of the characters of the show. And again, when we're thinking about both Deconstruction of Falling Stars and Objects at Rest, do you feel, especially with Deconstruction of Falling Stars, because I don't feel that wraps up any real emotional, emotional closure for
No.
anybody. And it would have been, and okay, so I'm going to bring up one of my other favorite series of all time. It's called Farscape. And
Okay.
Farscape was literally cut off at the knees right when they were going to end what probably would have been maybe their strongest season. And that was their season 5. And they wrapped it.
I was just going to ask, how many seasons did they have? Because I still have not yet watched Farscape.
Yeah, they have 4 seasons. They have 4 seasons, and at the very end of season 4 was a major cliffhanger,
Okay.
And then they didn't get their season 5. And yeah, so you're left with these dangling emotions and you don't know where to put all that. And sometimes it makes you resent the series, not the creators, but it makes you resent watching the series because you're not going to have that satisfying end. And we know that when we watch Babylon 5 and we watch it in order and we watch it to Sleeping in Light, we know at that end what we're expecting. And we know that we're going to cry. We know that we're going to get emotional. We know that we're going to be like, I can't put myself through this again, but we will because there's no other way but to end it there. And I'm wondering,
you have to,
with everybody like out there, is that how you felt? Obviously, no. About Deconstruction of Falling Stars, no. But is that how you felt at the end of Objects in Rest? Do you feel like
no?
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't hit quite that crescendo moment. Sleeping in Light, absolutely, it does. But if you're going to a point where you don't know about Sleeping in Light, with Objects at Rest being the conclusion of the show, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I watched it. Now, would we still be talking about this show? Would we be doing this stream every week? I want to say overall, yeah. I don't think a series finale necessarily makes or breaks a series entirely, like overall, because you've still got everything else that was just so good.
Right. But it's also rare that you have a series finale that's so good, right? That it becomes like, literally like one of the greatest hours of science fiction that I've ever seen, or maybe you've ever seen.
Exactly. And that's what Sleeping in Light is. And so then once you hit that, then you're just like, oh, then you can't imagine life without it.
Terry Lynn brings up a good point here. It's like, I could not believe the huge jump from Objects at Rest to Sleeping in Light. They skipped so much time. And that's fair because like, when you're looking at Babylon 5, with it maybe exception of, their flash forwards, say like, in World Without End 1 and 2, Babylon Squared, of which they're all related, and then say Deconstruction of Falling Stars, that they're not necessarily jumping the timeline because all of it, for the most part, kind of relates to each other, right? But when you go to like Objects in Rest to Sleeping in Light, that's 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it is a jump. There is a lot happening in those years, of course. And we're just barely catching up with them.
Summer says, my life is incomplete because Crusade is unfinished. Is it?
Oh.
Is it incomplete?
Oh.
Yeah, I would like to do. We should do a Crusade show. So let's maybe kind of pivot now. Now that we've kind of like gotten a lot of the what ifs, and we're not going to talk about Sleeping in Light specifically, but what is it about Sleeping in Light that wraps up Objects in Rest versus Deconstruction of Falling Stars?
Ooh, okay. I think I have an answer. Let's see how this works. All right. Sleeping in Light wraps up the emotional aspects of our experience as Babylon 5 fans. Objects at Rest wraps up kind of like the key, like the big plot points in the moment to close the series. Deconstruction doesn't. It's just kind of, it's either that epilogue or that interlude. And it's kind of its own self-contained thing, gotta say. That's what I've got.
It's, that's a difficult thing when you really think about it, because Sleeping in Light, it gives us what we want, but it doesn't necessarily give the entirety of the season what it needs. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Can you elaborate?
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with wrapping up kind of like the solidity of the overall timeline. It gives us what we want, when it comes to what happens to Sheridan, what happens to Ivanova, what happens to it gives us like all of them at the end, you know, and it wraps up Sheridan's journey like in the far future, where and it gives us that, you know, that moment of saying goodbye to the station, just like everybody else.
It's true. Yeah, I guess it's more of a moment of catharsis, because Sleeping in Light, I would say, brings up just as many questions as it does answers them.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, you've got the whole thing of, okay, what really exactly happened to Sheridan? What is beyond the rim? We don't know that. You know, and there's all the other stuff of, you see the still of Marcus Cole in the chamber. There's potential for that. And we know what that's all about with the short story. And so we don't know exactly what happens with Ivanova as Until Zaw, the Rangers, there's story potential for that. So for as many questions as we get answered, there's so many more brought up.
You know, the interesting thing about Sleeping in Light, because I think it's one of my favorite credit sequences of all time at the end, where they show where the characters started to where they ended. Those were all season 4 video captures.
They were.
You know?
Terry Lynn has a great comment about Deconstruction of Falling Stars. That is the kind of the history, the lore wrap of the B5 universe.
Yeah.
Like what happens to humanity.
Yeah.
It wraps up that aspect of things. Thank you, Terry Lynn. That's great.
Mm-hmm. And then Earl kind of like expounds on that. He says, deconstruction is the intellectual finale. Sleeping is the emotional finale.
I think so. I mean, if you're in a puddle of tears, which we all are, yeah, that's emotional.
Now, when it comes to that, like when it comes to objects at rest, you would think that knowing that, you know, the story is ramping down and the goodbyes are being said. Well, actually, I'll be fair. When John matches rotation, when the White Star matches rotation to salute the new cast,
yeah,
that does really get to me. That
is a moment. Now, it's not as, I mean, that's probably about as big of an emotional moment as we get in the episode. So, like,
and Garibaldi.
Well, okay. Yeah, that is in this episode, isn't it? Or is that the episode before?
Is it Objects in Motion?
It might be. Yeah. But let's consider the whole of it all. I mean, yeah, for as emotional as that is, it's not as much of a punch.
Yeah.
You know, I could digest that whole thing pretty well. Sleeping in Light, not so much.
Did you feel like when you saw the characters there, when it panned and you saw like Veer and Doctor and, you know, Talon and Lockley and
Dr. Hobbs, number one.
And what's his name? I can't remember his name.
Who?
Well, I know the actor's name, Joshua Cox.
Corwin.
Corwin. Do you feel that you were seeing like the counterparts in a way? Did you see the reflection of the original characters in there?
I mean, I see the new adventures on the horizon. They're going to have their moments just in the same way Sheridan and Ivanova and Franklin and Garibaldi and the rest of them all did. It's their time now. They've passed the torch.
Do you think that you would have liked to have seen their adventures in some shape or another?
Hell yeah. Which is why I loved in Lost Tales. You know, Lockley had been in command of Babylon 5 for some time. She'd reached this point where she's so used to it just being crazy, right? All in a day's work. But you'd have kind of seen how all of that had not worn her down so much, but just how almost like routine her life had become with Babylon 5, where she was just on the cusp of starting, maybe closing down that chapter of her life and then going on to something new.
Do you think that because Babylon 5, you know, there's that repetitive pattern of 5s, you know, Babylon 5, season 5. Do you think that in some way that would have been, we would have lost kind of like that, what I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but like lost that rhythmical connection with just say, okay, Babylon 5 only had 4 seasons, right?
You know, that really changes the Ivanova's ending monologue, which, for the record, I think if you had put that at the end of Objects at Rest, you kind of have Sheridan and Delenn, they share their kiss, and then you rise up to the nice landscape. I said manscape of Minbar.
Hello.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, then you could have the whole thing of Babylon 5 was the last of the Babylon stations. If you added that to Objects at Rest, then you have a perfect series finale.
And that's how you fit in Ivanova.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Now that
was awesome.
I think that would have been, without Sleeping in Light, if that had not happened, that would have been super satisfying. Now, where was I going with Ivanova's monologue? That whole, okay. Oh, how it would have been ruined with Force. Yeah, just the 5 thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just, no. We would have scratched that off. No, we can't do that. It's wrong.
Do you think in any way, shape, or form, this is kind of like now more wish list things to see what we could have thrown into like Objects at Rest. But do you think that there would have been in any way that would have made sense to reference Sinclair?
Ooh, now that would have been very nice, wouldn't it? I don't know. Just because really, War Without End is really his ending. Mm-hmm. Do we need more? Unless you're maybe adding in just a tiny little bit, like a little montage of sorts. You know how when John is talking about, oh, you're going to make friends, enjoy them for who they are. And we see this nice little montage of various characters. It would have been cool to possibly shoehorn Sinclair in there somehow. Maybe some sort of line of, hey, honor what came before, but create your own thing. Mm-hmm. You could have put Sinclair there. I'm
just curious. Like now with this kind of like when there are always wish lists with season finales or series finales, like, would you like to have seen anyone brought back from The Gathering? Say Ivanova is now working with Laurel Takashima. They're on the same cruiser together.
Hell yeah. I definitely want that. And stop me if I'm wrong, but there is a mention somewhere of Dr. Kyle, correct? Somewhere later in the series.
I think it was earlier in the series.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Because he was an older guy. I'd love to think that he had a chance to retire at some point. But it would be cool to have possibly some update on what he was up to.
Yeah, that's, I don't know like how, say, maybe Stephen Franklin and Dr. Kyle got together, but that's kind of like shoehorning things in. And maybe that's the testament of an episode, say like Objects at Rest, is that Joe didn't try and go for it all.
Yeah, it's true. You really don't have to throw in the proverbial kitchen sink, right? You just need it to be like just enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it has to ring true, right?
Exactly. And I hate to say it, but a lot of finales do try to just throw everything in. They want that one last salute. They want that one last bit of fan service, all of that.
The one thing that still to this day didn't really get its full due is kind of Bester and the Telepath War. And I don't know where they would have fit that in, say, at Objects at Rest, because they didn't even really fit it in Sleeping in Light. But
no, you don't, because it just barely makes Delen's ending monologue.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I think, that's just an adventure for another time. Sadly, that we didn't get.
So the comments are still coming in. Big time.
Yeah, they are. What have we got here? Manscaped sequel to Farscape. Yeah. I'm just imagining Muppets manscaping now.
Earl says, what if? Here's a good what if from Earl.
Okay,
instead of Sheridan just waking up feeling like, hey, I'm going to die tomorrow, he gets a handwritten note, as in War Without End, telling him wrap everything up, the day approaches. Like Sinclair did.
Yeah! Oh, that would have been so cool.
Yeah.
Because he knows exactly who it's from, and once he sees what it has to say in his bones, I'm sure he knows anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that's the prompt that confirms, like, okay, we're reaching the end of the beginning.
Exactly. Very good, Char. Nice drop in there.
Thanks.
Let's see. Super Dave says to Sheridan's Orange, my mind just went. If Sinclair was in Day of the Dead, who would he visit on the station?
Ooh. Oh, lots of possibilities there. What would be the most intriguing one?
I think he would, as Sinclair or as Valen.
That's just it. Boy, there's so many directions this could go. Oh my gosh.
I'd probably, since Garibaldi already got my favorite, he got Dodger, which is my favorite.
Yeah, of course.
I think maybe Sinclair would have visited, I would say either Ivanova.
Yeah. Or
Because
Garibaldi.
Yeah, but Garibaldi already got his.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
let's say Marie Marshall couldn't make an appearance as Dodger. If we could somehow have gotten Michael O'Hare, hello, old friend.
Or
You know,
Delenn.
honestly, that would have been really interesting just to have them reminisce about the old times.
Yeah. I think that would have been cool.
That could have been kind of fun. Oh, Mountains of Elysium. Thank you for clarifying. Dr. Kyle was mentioned in Objects in Motion. Franklin left B5 to take over his job as Dr. Kyle was retiring.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
right,
thought
that's right.
so.
Yeah.
I knew there was something.
Right.
Yes. And, Summer has a great comment. If she had gotten a note handwritten from Valen, she'd be pissed that he didn't include winning numbers for one of the Mars lottery jackpots. Well, yeah. Come on, man.
That's really manipulating the timeline, though.
Yeah, well.
Let's see. Summer says his note would have been from Kosh, not Valen.
Probably.
That would have been super interesting, though. Like
Kosh
somewhere
had sent
along,
the
to bring back Kosh, because I know that we wrapped up their storyline. They all left. After the end of season 3, but
yeah,
it would have been interesting.
What if Kosh had just like within him, because he has part of a Vorlon inside him, right?
Yeah.
Just hearing Kosh in his mind.
And like sleeping in light, like wake him up, it's like it's time.
Right.
You know?
Return to the end of the beginning.
Of the beginning. Yeah. When the long night comes, return to the end of the beginning, because that's what he told him.
So like he keeps having that dream, and maybe that's what the dream is.
That would have been a great way to bring back Kosh just at the very beginning. That would have been super cool.
That would have been.
All you really needed for that was just the audio clip, from Kosh.
Right.
Or a flashback.
Some royalties and
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because I know that because Sheridan was kind of like tossing and turning, and he was uncomfortable. He wasn't sleeping well, and maybe because Kosh was nagging at his head. Yeah.
He was having those dreams that make his hair stand on end, right?
And his beard.
Would have been amazing. Yes. Okay. Well, we're getting close to the end of the show. Do you have any final thoughts about this topic? I mean, obviously, we got Sleeping in Light as the finale. You can't beat it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anything further about Objects at Rest and where that might have landed the series overall had we not ever known about Sleeping in Light?
Well, I think that you're right. It is a very good, very, serviceable end to the story. To be completely honest, it's hard. It really is hard to kind of separate the momentum of Object and Rest to Sleeping in Light, because as Babylon 5 fans, it's literally like the cornerstone of our series. It's probably one of the, it's for me, it's one of the greatest episodes of television I've ever watched. It's also one of the most emotional episodes of television I've ever watched, and it still is to this day.
Absolutely.
I've revisited many of my fandoms over the decades, and I know what's coming. I know the beats that are coming in Sleeping in Light. I know when things are going to happen, and I still get like emotionally upside down in that episode.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter that you know it's going to happen. It still draws you in, and it is by far and away, in my opinion, the most satisfying emotional payoff for any kind of entertainment I've ever invested my hours watching.
I think because there were so many goodbyes in between Objects in Motion and Objects in Rest, and this goes back to maybe, and I could be just kind of like trying to fuse these two ideas together, but Joe being the fan of Lord of the Rings that he is. In The Lord of the Rings, at the end of Return of the King, there are a series of goodbyes. Legolas and Gimli are left. Gimli takes him, or Legolas takes him to Lorien, or left Lorien. And, there are all these, like, eventually, everyone says goodbye until the hobbits get to the Shire. And in the books, there was a whole other thing after that, the Scouring of the Shire. But there are, and even in the movies, there are separate endings for separate characters as they basically wrap the story up. And that's where like Objects in Motion, Objects at Rest, and Sleeping in Light all fit together, because they're all goodbye episodes. You're saying goodbye to characters that you have fallen in love with, that you have invested so much emotional time in. And it's it's reasonable to, to be as emotional as you are because, well, it's like Joe said, like the fewer words it takes to say the most powerful emotions. You're saying goodbye to these characters. And
Yes.
Delenn said the Minbari don't have a word for goodbye because we'll see each other eventually in one form or another. And that's what sleeping in light is. We didn't say goodbye to them at objects at rest,
right.
technically.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So it's the cadence, you get to a momentum and a cadence of things. And it's always objects in motion, objects in rest, sleeping in light, because you're saying goodbye to a handful of them in one, a handful of them in two, and all of them in the last one.
It's
right?
true. It's like you're ramping it up.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like beats to a song. So yeah, it's really, really, really difficult to try and separate Sleeping in Light from either. Well, I don't think it's as difficult to separate it from season 4 as it is to season 5. Season 5 has a very solid structure of narrative. And I know that with season 5, that I've defended this on podcasts of yours before, on the Nerd Party Network, where Sleeping in season 5 is one of my favorites because not a lot of series have the courage to not try and escalate as they increase in seasons. This season de-escalated.
Yeah, by far and away. I mean, I think a part of that just comes from Joe knowing, okay, we're really lucky to be here, first off, but this really is the end. We are not going to push for a 6th season. It's not going to happen. This series is going to come to an end. And I love Terry Lynn's comment. I gotta comment on this because of how much I love fanfic. If there had been no Sleeping in Light, we would be here discussing what happened to Delenn and John. Oh my gosh, yes. As active as the fanfic scene was back in the day, imagine how much more there would have been. All the things, all the places you could have gone to. My goodness. Yes. Yeah. Oh.
Well, we have some creative people out there, so...
And fanfic is still alive and well in the Babylon 5 universe. If you go to AO3 or fanfiction.net, new stories still show up here and there. There's people writing whole series, their own little mini universe in B5, going on and on. It's fantastic. It's a great testament to just what a rich universe it is. You can just pick one thing and go with it. Or you can write just a short little drabble. You can write the smut. You can do whatever you want. There's so much that you can do.
The slash.
There's lots of slash fanfic. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so lightning round for everybody because we're coming up on our time here. We're a little bit over time.
Yeah, we got to go.
Okay, so in Objects at Rest, what's the one thing that you wanted to see that you didn't see?
Ooh. I don't know.
Okay, so
just taking it in.
We're going to move that part of this discussion to the Discord channel.
Okay, that's a good idea because I need to think on that one.
Yeah.
Do you have an answer?
Nope.
Okay, well, see, it's not that easy.
It's not easy. That's why I asked.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I wanted? You know what I would want if I would want like one little thing that didn't need to be there, just to have it there. I want to see Mac and Bo walking down the corridor.
Oh, just cleaning something up, right? Yeah. Just that life moves on.
Lines. They're just jabbering amongst themselves, but I want to see Mac and Bo one more time.
That would have been awesome. That would have been
That's my
amazing.
answer.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Okay. Any other things in the lightning round?
No. I just kind of like... Mountains of Elysium says, I'd like to have seen Lita and Zach have a proper goodbye. I know.
That's not the way it was supposed to happen, though.
I guess not.
We need that longing look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the floor isn't any cleaner. No, we don't know what that stupid machine does.
Yeah, they just push it back and forth.
Why are they wasting their time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to just see them just jibber jabbering, they're having their lively conversation in the background. We don't know what they're talking about, but we know who they are.
So we're both excited to see like all of our numbers are increasing like every week. So please do the due diligence and do the hit like and subscribe button on this side of the screen.
Yeah. if you get if you get the bell on, as they say on a lot of YouTube videos, that lets you know the moment that we go live. And if you need a reminder, that's a great way to do it. We really have seen a massive uptick in new viewers, new subscribers, all of that. I think a lot of it's due to HBO Max, and that's fantastic. I'm glad people are revisiting the series or watching it for the first time. And if you are watching it for the first time, I really hope you've gotten to the end of the series, because otherwise you probably have no idea what we've been talking about this whole hour.
And if you haven't seen it, and this is an interesting thing, I'd love to put a poll out there on Twitter where you can find us, because you can find us all of our information in the show notes. You can also find us on Twitter at Zocalo Livecast. But there are people out there that are watching Babylon 5 for the first time, don't know any of the history of it, don't know any of what we're talking about. And I would love to know if they feel satisfied with Objects at Rest being the finale. Before they get to Sleeping in Light.
You know what we should have put at the very top of the show was, if you have not seen Sleeping in Light and you're working your way through the series, pause this video right now. Let us know when you've watched Objects at Rest and tell us how you feel about it as an ending before you watch Sleeping in Light.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like I'm so bad about that kind of stuff, because I was having this conversation with John Champion, and I said, what is the statute of limitation on spoilers? Or was it with you?
You were talking with me about it, but you might have been talking about John with it too.
Yeah.
Your co-host of Mission Log. Yeah. There really isn't one. That's the problem, right?
Well, I mean, 25 years is a long time.
It's a long time. Like, really, you would think that if in this amount of time you hadn't watched a show, you shouldn't get mad about being spoiled, but people do it all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I'm watching ER for the very first time, and that show's 20-something years old. I'm not going to get mad if somebody spoils something for me, because I could have watched it way back when. I just didn't. So
maybe there are people out there that that are seeing this for the first time. Ask them.
Earl's comment.
Sucks up. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I love that so much. Okay. Sorry.
He is the wit. He is our
Earl.
Zathras.
You can get more of that in the Discord. I've posted a link into the chat. It lasts for 24 hours. If you are watching this after that period has expired and the link is no longer valid, you can hit us up on Twitter, either with Zocalo Livecast or my personal one. Oh, the Profanity is me. Lounge Lizard is you. We can hook you up.
Yep. I was about to say, like, it would have been cool to see Zathras at the end of Objects at Rest. You know?
How would that have worked, though? Let's take that to Discord, because we have a Zathras spot.
Yeah. It just would. You know, it just would. This is wrong ending. So, you know.
He could be narrating in the credits.
That would have been so funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. If you liked our show, please share it with all of our Babylon 5 friends out there. We know that there are many. And we know that, again, we're upticking because there is a resurgence of Babylon 5 thanks to being on HBO Max and also on Apple TV. So until next time, I've been Norm, she's been Char, and be seeing you.
Take care, everybody.